Hello, History 132 students. Hope all is well and everyone is remaining safe. This would be our sixth lecture today. We're going to talk about the revolutions in energy and industry. Now, if you was following us last week, we talked about the Atlantic revolutions, the American Revolution, the French Revolution, and the Haitian Revolution. The revolution that occurred in the countries that touched the Atlantic Ocean. Now, this concept of revolution starts with the Enlightenment period, where they're talking about justice, equality, liberty, freedom, totally unheard of, breaking away from the old absolutism of kings and queens. But these were political and military revolutions, more political than military. As you know, the American Revolution led to the establishment of the United States of America. The French Revolution did not turn out like the American Revolution. In fact, it was three phases, all chaotic, and it took the rise of a military leader to bring peace to France. That leader is Napoleon Bonaparte, which we're going to talk about later. In Haiti, what can we say? The first black republic in North America, very poor, still very poor, but achieving that independence is significant and gave other black folks in Africa and the Americas hope of one day being free. But let's get to the chapter today, chapter 23, Energy and Industry. It's basically, we're talking about the Industrial Revolution. I'm sure all of you have heard of this event, but this revolution transformed the world that we live in. And it also transformed the economics and the social life of people living at this particular time. Now, keep this in mind. The Industrial Revolution begins in Great Britain around 1780 and soon began to influence continental Europe and the United States. Now, what does this tell you? The Industrial Revolution is going on while the American Revolution, the French Revolution, and the Haitian Revolution are occurring. The development of agriculture during the Neolithic time had a comparable impact and significant on world history. Non-European nations did not begin to industrialize until after 1860. So we got the European nations getting a head start on the rest of the world. Thus began the creating of what we call the third world countries. Now, as I said earlier, the revolution starts in Great Britain. But why Britain? There are a number of factors that comes together over the long term to give rise to the Industrial Revolution in Britain. The scientific revolution and the Enlightenment fostered a new worldview that embraced progress and the role of research and experimentation in understanding and mastering the natural world. So, technology drove the development of early factories, particularly machine-powered factories to create textile industry. Normally, these innovations was powered by water wheel or water flow, but something is on the horizon that would change all of this. The invention of the spinning wheel and the spinning jenny are examples of advancement during this particular time. Now, when you think of textile, we're talking about cloth. And of course, cloth is made from wool, but mainly cotton or other synthetic material. But remember, in the Americas, while this is going on, guess what is happening? The plantation system is taking over. So these southern planters, with their huge population of black African slaves, planting, harvesting, and shipping the cotton back to Great Britain to be processed into cloth, clothing. So this revolutionary development of the textile industry allowed British manufacturers to produce vast quantity of cotton, thread, and cloth. But it also created work. Someone had to work on those spinning jenny, and normally they were female or children, women. So a young, a young lady as young as 5 or 6 of age, boys and girls were forced by law to labor for their masters for many as 14 years. They worked in these factories sometime up to 13, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, with little or no pay. But something happened to change the machinery and the industrialization of this era. The invention of the steam engine. Let's see, I think we give credit to James Watts, who was a gifted Scot who produced a powerful steam engine which revolutionized factories and transportation. Now, you know what steam is, right? Water heated that produce a vapor, that is the steam, and using that steam power steam engines and equipment. So that destination goes to James Watts, who invented the steam engine in 1763. And this would lead to the invention of the locomotive and other power driving machines that are powered by steam. Now, you can ship goods, you can move people from place to place. The train or the locomotive revolutionized transportation. It moved away from horse and buggy. Now, this train would be superseded later by the automobile, the combustible engine, of course. Now we have airplanes and boats and other transportation modes. But this steam engine is key. And of course, it is imported to the Americas. I think, what's the name that Robert Fulton navigated the Erie Canal on a steamboat. But the railroad now connected not only in Europe, but also in America. We see the development of railroads, and the railroads are powered by steam, thanks to James Watts. Now, with this job growth, it also led to a population increase. And this industrialization was key to the growth of the population of the Western world. What else do I want to tell you about this? That the industrialization was slow to reach Africa and Europe. It made it to the United States and Australia and Western Europe before it made it to anywhere else. So in fact, continental Europe was the first to be totally industrialized, and people made money off this industrialization. But it also changed the way we worked and lived. Remember, let's go back to the textile industry. Initially, women were married, stayed at home, raised the baby. Now, the textile industry, they're leaving the home and going to work in the textile factories. And this would have tremendous effect, a ripple effect throughout society. It led to more divorces, more children being born out of wedlock. Women now had freedom that they had never had before because they could afford to take care of themselves. But these were horrendous conditions that women and children were forced to work under. It led to a Factory Act of 1833, which banned children between the age of 13 from working in the factories. And of course, we just described the division of labor among women and men. All of that occurs during this Industrial Revolution. There are increase in living standard, but there are also an increase in urban poverty. People living in the city, living on top of each other. And that will lead to a response of trying to improve the condition of the working class, particularly in England and later in the rest of Europe. And so this is what a critic had of this Industrial Revolution that was occurring before their very eyes. I mentioned to you the impact of slavery, particularly on the textile industry. The Industrial Revolution led to the development of the gin, Eli Whitney, and this led to greater production and because of the ginning of cotton, which led to an increase in the domestic slave trade, the increase in the slave population. So what else did I want to tell you about this? Now, the British Parliament abolished the slave trade in 1807 and freed all slaves in the British territory in 1833. But by 1850, most of the cotton processed by Britain was supplied by forced labor of slaves in the southern United States, shipped on ships from New England shippers, mariners. So, this is the Industrial Revolution. Now let's recap. The Atlantic Revolution were political revolutions. The Enlightenment was intellectual revolutions. The scientific revolution defines itself, this invention of telescopes and other means of scientific thought. So, this is where we're going to end this lecture. Now, I would like to mention to you, I believe on Thursday, October 15th, that's 2 weeks from today, we will be having the second of our 3 tests for this class. So I will load the study guide, I will load this lecture, and the PowerPoint slide. As you know from taking the first exam, the study guides are the key to passing the test. So focus on the study guide. Now, I hope that you have begun to work on your only one assignment, which is the writing of one research paper that contains 5 pages, double space, MLS, sourcing, and documentation. If you have any questions, if you haven't found your topic, let me know. I will assign you one. If you can't choose one of your own, let me know and I will assign you a topic. Be blessed and stay safe. Caver out.